I was asked to prepare a brief tutorial for the Chapter 28 problem. So the first thing I want to point out with this problem, and I'm not going to read you every word because there's a lot of text to this, but the first thing I want to point out is what you can see on the screen right now is an example of what you're going to be doing in the next part. So this is totally independent and separate from what you're going to see down below. So you are asked to do then is for a different company, University Publishing, you are asked to prepare their balanced scorecard. Let me see if I can sneak that onto the screen. And so again, it's going to look basically like what you see up here, that you're identifying which of these elements are strategic objectives, which are strategic initiatives that are going to be tied to a strategic objective. So you can see that train employees is the first strategic objective, and that's under the learning and growth category. Tied to that, they have an initiative to tie pay to training hurdles. And so they identify that's a strategic initiative, and it ties back to strategic objective number 1. So we're looking at this number, this number right over here on the far left. We have some performance metrics. So we're going to use median training hours per employee to measure whether we're meeting this initiative that is tied to the strategic objective number 1. And then those are our 3. So those are our 3. So we need to locate under the correct perspective of the 4 and identify whether each of the elements is a strategic objective, strategic initiative, or performance metric. And if it's an initiative or a metric, we need to say it goes with which objective. So there's always going to be that tie back. If it's a strategic objective, that's standalone and we aren't tying that to anything else. What is different in the balanced scorecard that we are asked to produce is that we need to label the ones that are not needed. And so we're going to be using that letter N to say not needed or not relevant, not affected, I guess is what they say, although it should be affected with an A, not effected. I didn't write it. So let me just show you as an example how this would work. So the first item here is we want to retain large volume customers. Well, that sounds like a strategic objective associated with the customer perspective. And so I'm labeling that. Well, if we've tied that to the customer perspective, then we know it's not affected under the financial and internal processes in learning and growth. And so I'm going to change those to the letter N. Well, let's see if we can find, is there an initiative that that this company, University Publishing, is going to promote to try to retain large volume customers? And I'm not sure that there is, because there's, we don't always have a strategic initiative associated with each one of our objectives. But let me just scan down this list and see if any of these seem like initiatives that would help us to retain large volume customers. So I'm looking for something specific related to large volume customers. I don't see any. Okay, so let's try the next line. Increased digital sales. Well, that sounds like not learning objective, I'm using my academic language, a strategic objective for this company. And that would improve their financial, that would be from the financial perspective. So we'll just label all of these, not needed. And maybe we can find a strategic objective, a strategic initiative that would help to increase our digital sales. And our very next line says, let's have a Go Digital campaign. That sounds like an initiative, sure. And that initiative would help us to support this objective of increasing digital sales, which is, you can see right here, number 2. So I'm going to put a number 2 there, because that's the initiative tied back to that number 2 objective. And then I just need to mark all the rest of these as ends because those are not relevant. So how are we going to know if our Go Digital campaign was successful? How are we going to measure that? Well, again, the very next line says digital sales as a % of total revenue. That seems like a reasonable way of measuring whether our Go Digital campaign was successful to help us to meet this objective of increasing digital sales. So again, that's a performance metric. It's how we're going to measure. It's tied back with strategic objective number 2, and then all the rest of these need to be marked as not affected or not relevant. And so that's how you're going to continue for each one of these lines. Make a decision about whether it's an objective, an initiative, or a performance measure. If it's an initiative or a performance measure, it needs to tie back to some objective that the company has already identified, and you have to put it under the correct perspective of these 4 perspectives, and then mark all the other perspectives as N. And then you're going to do the same thing here for Z Cosmetics. So it's just a repetition of the same approach that we used for university publishing up above. And then for J&S Ski Vacations, again, totally independent from the others, go through and use that same technique that we used for university publishing. And then finally, for Buckeye Electric, I think because this is separate from the others, again, totally independent, they want to consult with Buckeye Electric management regarding any item whose performance metric has achieved less than 50%. And so each one of these you're going to go through and see, did they get to at least 50%? If they did not, you're going to say, yes, they need to consult with the company, and you're going to identify which perspective, again, just like we've been doing up above. And so hopefully that helps you to understand what it is they're looking for this exercise. If you're working on it and have any questions or problems, of course, as always, please reach out, let me know. I'll be happy to assist.